Hockey goalie is the most unique position in all of sports. Goalies play in the NHL, but also high school, college, the minors, international leagues, e-bug, beer league, on and on and on. And in all those places, if the goalie fails, so does the team. They don't even look like the other players in their own game. Special masks, sticks, and sweaters. They're like armored knights. And like armored knights, their job is to defend the castle. Castles are sometimes called keeps, and goalies are sometimes called keepers. So really, what it is, in every game, underneath all those armored layers, is a person trying to save the day.
So my name's Shane Preb. I'm one of the goalies for Indiana University of Pennsylvania. My nickname is Moose. Moose, one of the parents said Moose, and it's just stuck ever since, and it goes team by team, and everyone still continues to call me Moose, but yeah.
There are multiple ways to play the position. There are multiple stances you can have as a goalie. There's not one way to play it, right?
Some goalies, don't get fortunate as other goalies, and like hearing their story, how they got up to there, how they succeed, and each and every day. But I think the biggest thing is like how they got to that point.
What's the goalie's job? It's to stop the puck. Your job is to be in the way of everything. Goaltending, one of the best things I've ever heard was from my mentor, and that goaltending is a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. I think the helmet is the most personal piece of equipment that allows you to tell your story, that allows you to pay tribute to the people that got you to your position, but also allows you to express the form of creativity and expression that you have. Because when you're playing net, for me, it's an art form. Goalie's an art. When you have a goalie that's dialed in that flow state and you watch him move, it's like poetry in motion, man. It's art.
Yeah, I kept it simple for my mask. I have to have the moose, my nickname, so I got a silhouette of an angry moose with some big teeth. I also have moose written down on the jaw, on the right side of my jaw. My number 40 on the chin. My favorite part of the mask is the back plate. I have forever in our hearts. I end up losing my two paps, and I want them to be with me at all times on the ice. But yeah, my slip. He was a train conductor. He was a conductor for Conrail. And I have a drawn, sketched part of a Conrail engine, and then I also have Werther's original candy, a couple pieces of the candy, because every time I saw him, he'd always slip a piece of Werther's caramel candy in my hands every time I saw him. My other Pappy Joe, he was loved me at the casino, so I have a big stack of poker chips and a couple cards sketched out for him there. But yeah, this is my favorite part of the mask. They're always with me, and I miss them and I love them. So that's my mask.
You talk about masks, right? Like Patrick Lalime, right? When he first came into the league, right? In 97 with his mask, and Brian Hayward, San Jose, right? His mask with the shark head, right? Kelly Rudy with the Hollywood sign on top of his mask. Mike Richter, for sure, favorite goalie of all time. He's got one of the best. Jerry Cheevers, the first time I saw that in Hall of Fame, blew me away. Kenny Reggett, for whatever reason, like Ken Reggett's mask in Pittsburgh, Sean Burke's mask in Phoenix really stands out. I've always loved Rick DiPietro's mask when he first came up with the Islanders. Patrick Waugh's, Avalanche mask was up there for me. Yeah, those are pretty much like the ones that really, like, from my youth, that stay with me for as long as I can remember, for sure. And I told my parents, like, no matter if I'm in hockey, I'm going to be a goalie. There's nothing you can do to change that. Kids start off as forwards and defensemen, but always are drawn to the net, and then they make the conversion. Or kids just wake up one day and say, I want to be a goalie, and they stick through that, their entire playing career. You have to be able to be coordinated enough to get your body from one position to the other. You don't have to be the best at it as a little kid. You just have to be quick enough to be in position fast.
Getting out there with the young guys, those young goalies, especially the ones starting out, they look up to you. They want to be just like you and all that. But it's nice to see the younger generation wanting to step in the goalie skates and try that position out. Some kids might be scared and afraid to, standing tall in that net and getting puck shot at them all the time. But, it's nice to see kids enjoy it. It's nice to see kids enjoy that position and, have that drive like, the older guys have, or any goalie has that drive. But it's really cool to see them have that drive behind them and that rush of fun.
Like, you have to be able to move. Goaltending is not for the immobile, the unathletic. It's not for the kid who can't skid up and down the ice. For me, with my kids, like with my daughter played at a pretty high level. She didn't get her first real set of brand new pads till she was 16. I love the uniqueness. I love the fact that goalies now tap into that artistry of it. They tap into the colors, the little, you have glow in the dark masks. You have goalies that change color when they get wet, and it's all these little touches that showcase like how unique our position is. There is a history and a culture for what we do. And you won't know where the position is going to go unless you know where it's been. Like, there's a lot of goaltending that is very parallel to playing free safety or cornerback or linebacker in football. There's a lot of it that's very parallel to playing defensive mid in soccer, right? There's a lot of also an understanding of like posture and position, the way that you would play wide receiver.
Practicing game, you hear the term a lot, you hear the saying a lot, practice how you play. I mean, it's very important, you want to run the fundamentals and everything and make sure you're sharp, especially leading up to games. I mean, we practice 3 times a week. But I think the most important thing is practice how you play. Just keep the same mindset, except especially a practice before a game. We have the games on Fridays and, practice on Thursday that we work on power plays and special teams like that. And I think we always have to stay sharp on our minds. Granted, I can admit for myself, I do have some fun in practice, but at the same time, there's a serious note to it. And, you want to stay, the full fundamentals and everything. Make sure you're stopping pucks, make sure you're swearing, strong pushes and stuff like that. But at the same time, you got to have fun with it. Whether it's a game or practice, you got to have fun. Because you make it too serious and you might get burned out and might lose interest in it. That's a big thing you got to see.
You take the average sports fan or just the average person out the street. If a puck goes in the net, they know right away it's the goalie's fault. Now imagine no one knowing what you're going through, seeing the one mistake that you made that may or may not be directly yours. It could be the fault of 4 or 5 other systems that happened that led to that goal. But imagine someone looking that has no idea what you're going through and then judging you based off of that. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure. It is an individual and a team sport.
How about a round of applause for our 8U flag?
I get pretty mad. When I get scored on. You want to be the best you could possibly be in the game. You want to give your team the most chances they can win the game because, there's only one net they got to score and there's one person they got to get past. You let it go up, you can always think, yeah, well, you got past 5 other, they got past 5 other players and it beat you. Well, still, you're the last line of defense.
The only person that gets the pressure that you're in is the guy, 200 feet away in the other crease. So it's a very individualized system in a team game, yeah. If you're going to be a goalie, there's a level of respect that you're automatically going to have. Hey, like, you're the one guy that we need to have in order to have a team, right? If you don't have a goalie, you don't really have a team, right?
And also too, I never shut up on the ice. I'm a big communicator. I think, although we got to be the best skaters, I think we got to be the best communicators because, there's guys out there, they don't have eyes on the back of their heads. They don't know who's coming down behind them. So being a communicator and letting them know and, being a driving force is a big thing, but it's a team game. Everyone's got to contribute.
I think developing a coping mechanism that doesn't allow you to retreat, but allows you to forget is the most important thing. Mentally, you cannot crawl into a hole. You have to get yourself out of it and then plant your feet because a puck's gonna drop in 7 seconds.
I think the biggest thing is, it's in the past. Put it in the past. You got to look up to your next shot. That goal is important, but the next shot and the next shot you face has to be even more important. So getting scored on, it stings. I'm very competitive. I hate, I always want to be the best I possibly can. But getting a score, you just gotta, as tough as it is, you want to brush it off. Short memory, and look forward and keep going.
It is mental. It's your ability to have the mental dexterity to not only get over a bad situation, but also to play the inner game of it and be able to process that game at a higher pace than the guy 200 feet away from you. Your ability to breathe through stress, to breathe through high pressure situations, to slow your heart rate down. So basketball, right? Like when you slide step on a defensive stand, so let's say you're at the top of the point, right? And the guy dribbles to the right, you slide step to the left. That's goaltending. That's still hockey goalie, right? Like you're moving laterally on an angle, on a diagonal, right? To cut off the ball handler's angle to the net. Well, that's very linear to what we're doing. I'm moving on an angle to take away the angle of the puck carrier to the net or the shot away, if that makes sense. You may not have possession of the puck, but you have the effect, the result. Not the cause, but you have the effect of the puck. And so your job is to change it. You're the one in charge of what's happening, not the puck.
It's a rush. The adrenaline rush is definitely a thing. It makes you hungrier. Being that last guy, you got to make, making that power play save or making that breakaway save, making those saves in overtime or making those saves in regulation. I think it's a fun position, being the last line of defense. Quite honestly, I think, what's not to like about the position?